Hi there, I'm Hiro Isobe, a student of Shaman College of Chiropractic. I'm very honored to be introducing such an amazing doctor of chiropractic, Dr. Thom Gelardi. He is a founder of Shaman College of Chiropractic, and he graduated Parma School of Chiropractic in 1957. And after that, he followed his mentor, Dr. Lyle Shaman, to Gaffney, South Carolina. And he established Shaman College of Chiropractic in 1973. And he also he was an instructor at Shaman College to teach philosophy and upper cervical technique and so forth. He's a very amazing guy and my great friend and also mentor. And his passion and vision for chiropractic has impacted to thousands of students, DCs, patients around the world. I have no doubt about it. I'm so excited to have you here today for this discussion.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, sure. Let's move on to today's questions. So, okay, Dr. Thom, why do you think that the mission of chiropractic is very important rather than chiropractic philosophy or art?
Well, I think that philosophy, science, and art are very important. It's not a matter of one being more important than the other. It's that they serve two different purposes. Mm-hmm. That if you look at the mission of accounting or engineering or dentistry, that mission has been defined many years ago, sometimes thousands of years ago.
Yeah. And
a profession keeps its mission forever. Now the philosophy, science, and art of dentistry and accounting and so on, mm-hmm. They're changing all the time. They're always improving, but it's not a fixed thing. Mm-hmm. That, say for instance, a philosophy is one's understanding of the fundamental nature of reality. Well, that understanding has changed greatly in several thousand years.
Right.
So that means you'd have a greatly different profession if it was a philosophy. But the mission always stays the same. Mm-hmm. Rather than the mission, or you could say the mission of what a profession is striving to do, dentistry is striving to keep the oral cavity, particularly the teeth and the gums, healthy. Mm-hmm. In chiropractic, our mission is to keep the spine free of subluxation.
Exactly.
So that mission, but there's another thing that a profession does. Another way of defining its mission is to determine its central area of interest. Because a profession is of three parts: the research, whether it be accounting, dentistry, architecture, medicine, anything. The mission is of three parts: research, education, and practice. So what is a central area of interest in chiropractic research? Mm-hmm. For all time, it will be the subluxation.
Right.
And the central area of interest in education should be the subluxation. Or in practice, when you're in practice, what is your central area of interest? It's the subluxation. Now, it's a little bit different in research, education, or practice. In practice, it may be trying to get a service to the people. But what service? Well, it has to do with subluxation again. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that science and philosophy divide people. People have different ideas as to what is the scientific significance of something, or what is the philosophical, what is your understanding of the fundamental nature of reality. Chiropractors differ in that understanding,
Right.
and that's good. And by sharing those differences of opinions, we can improve the philosophy, science, and art. But in the mission, there can be no difference. The mission is fixed. Medical doctors today, or dentists, optometrists, they know what their mission is. They are united, and if you don't agree with it, then get out of the profession. But a difference in philosophy, chiropractors would divide up of who's full spine, who's upper cervical, who's lower spine. That's no reason to divide up. In time, we'll come to the best way to find and correct subluxations. But we have differences in philosophy. In time, we'll come closer together. But the mission is the thing that unites a profession. Nothing else unites a profession other than mission. So if you're not going to have, if you look the definition in the dictionary of a profession, it's a group of people with a common calling. Well, philosophy is never a common calling, and neither is science or neither is philosophy. They're the things, philosophy, science, and art advance a profession. Art expresses a profession, and philosophy and science really advance the profession. So that's why I say we have to unite on what is our mission. And our mission, well, I'll get maybe into that later, but anyway, we have to unite on the mission.
Okay. How does the mission serve the profession?
That's a very good question, because it serves a profession in a way that's very, very different from philosophy, science, and art. They also serve the profession, but mission serves it in a different way. One of the things is it unites the profession, as I mentioned earlier. It's the only thing that could unite a profession. Second thing is it gives identity to the profession. That people have the same identity today of dentistry or accounting that they had 500 years ago.
Right.
So it just gives an identity. And without a mission, you don't have an identity, you really don't have a profession. And mission drives the profession's methods. So in the early time of a profession, as in chiropractic, the profession was very divided about techniques. And there'll always be a difference in technique. People will always use a different way of achieving an art. It's an art form. But mission, if people know their mission, they know that their art is supposed to advance the mission. And if we share the information of what we have found and we have peer review, each one can critique what the other one has found or try to duplicate it, that gradually the methods become more uniform. And we find out, so mission really drives methods. If a chiropractor's mission is to alleviate a patient's symptoms or try to get rid of a patient's condition, that's really a medical mission.
Right.
And if they're using a different method today, gradually in time, they will have all medical methods, and it will be a medical profession. And if chiropractic can give better relief, say, for bursitis in the shoulder than cortisone can, then medical doctors will begin using it.
Yeah.
So people with a common mission have a common practice.
It does make sense. So why do you think that we should not focus on sick people get well?
Yes, that seems kind of a strange thing to say that should not be our focus, because everyone wants to see sick people get well. One thing is that professions make limited contributions to keeping people well.
Yeah.
The nutritionist, that if you eat better, you'll be better. Well, certainly that's true. And the psychologist says that, you know, if you think better, it'll help your general health, and that's true also. And so certainly if you're free of subluxation, your body has greater health, and the body's own natural ability to contribute to being well is increased.
Yeah.
But if you want people to be, you know, if your mission is to have people become well, then you have to define what do you mean by well. And if you want to have people's physiology improve, I think every healing profession wants that. But what you do is you have a limited contribution to that.
Right.
Even medicine has, every medical doctor only makes a limited contribution. If you're a general practitioner, you take care of minor injuries, and then you also diagnose a patient enough to guess what specialist they should see. So they send you from their office to another limited practitioner who says, yes, this is the right place, it is your heart. Or maybe they say, no, it's not your heart, I'm going to send you to a gastroenterologist and see. And so that's another limited practitioner. So all healthcare practitioners are limited. There is no healthcare practitioner that is not limited. There are plenary doctors that look at the whole body. Like a general practitioner will look at the whole body to decide what specialist you should go to that specializes in a small part of the body. But most of the professions, other than a general practitioner, they deal with only certain conditions, a class of conditions affecting a limited part of the anatomy. Say an optometrist, they don't take care of all conditions affecting the eye. They just take care of a limited number of conditions: astigmatism, nearsightedness, farsightedness, a class of conditions that affect the eye, and that's their work. In chiropractic, in any profession or specialty within a profession, you can look and say, okay, what is their limited part of the anatomy? In chiropractic, it's the spine. And what is a class of conditions? It's subluxations, different kinds of subluxations. But we don't take care of everything that affects the spine. We don't take care of tumors, we don't take care of a lot of diseases or fractures, and so forth. So we take care of a class of conditions affecting a limited part of the anatomy. That is true of all healing arts.
Right.
They know what their mission is. I always think about an ophthalmologist. First, he's an ophthalmologist, so all he takes care of is the eye. But then he can go on and take care of just retinas. And that's about an inch and a half of tissue. And that's all he takes care of, is an inch and a half of tissue. The dentist doesn't take care of everything in the oral cavity.
Yeah.
They take care of a class of conditions. And medicine, dentistry has something like 7 different specialties. And even they don't even take care of all the teeth. They'll send you to an orthodontist or a periodontist or an endodontist, pediodontist. So they have many specialties. In chiropractic, we will one day have specialties. We will have a general practitioner that looks at the entire spine. But we may have some people who limit their practice to just infants, but they'll still deal with subluxations in the spine on infants. Or we may have some who just have a special interest in the upper cervical spine, and they have a great deal more experience with that. Or someone with a lumbopelvic spine. And not that everyone needs a lumbopelvic adjustment, but the general practitioner would say, here's the one that you need to be seeing. Or someone may be in chiropractic imaging. We don't know what kind of imaging equipment will come out in the future, but we do know MRIs and X-rays and so on are available today. So chiropractic is a limited profession, and people respect that. They don't respect someone who says, well, I deal in nutrition, and I can deal with your emotional problems, and I can deal with your diseases, and with your symptoms, and with your spine, you know, and that, there's no respect for that, and there shouldn't be any respect for that.
I agree with that. So today, most of patients visit your office, chiropractor's office, because they have a symptoms or disease such as head pain or back pain or any kind of stuff, but truly chiropractic is focused on vertebral subluxation. So our mission is not relieve symptoms of disease. So how to move the patient's minds, like symptoms or disease base, to the objective of chiropractic?
That's very good question too. You know, I became a chiropractic patient when chiropractic was only 40 years old. If you consider the subluxation was discovered in 1895, but the profession really did not get started until 1910. D.D. Palmer taught a few people, but by 1910 there was only about 1,000 chiropractors that had graduated Palmer School. And chiropractic was very criticized at that time because they were taking care of people that were given up medically. And so the big criticism was that chiropractors, it wasn't musculoskeletal for stiff necks or backs. It was that chiropractors think that they could cure everything.
Right.
And if they would only stay with stiff necks and sore backs, that we could accept them. But we can't accept them when they say that they can help diabetes and epilepsy and so forth. So chiropractors, from a marketing standpoint, began to move, and they said, well, I could become more acceptable and more attract more patients if I would limit my practice or tell people that I am a reasonable chiropractor and I only take care of stiff necks and bad shoulders and such. But the real thing is that we don't do either one, and as you know, that we deal with subluxations. They say that, you know, you can't sell and you can't even give away something you don't first own. And so if the chiropractic owns the idea that I'm not treating the shoulder, I'm not treating the lower back, and after I adjust them, I don't get them up and say, now try and see, how does your neck feel now? Or how does your back feel now? Or doesn't, if the chiropractor is not into the symptoms, then the patient tends to move away from the symptoms also. And there are many things you could do when you get the big idea. One of the things that you do is early on, my first session with a patient is listen to them. Why are you coming here? And no matter what they tell me, I write it down. So if they tell me because their neck is sore, or they thought I delivered babies, I just write it down. I don't talk, it's a listening time, and let them get everything out. Then after, I usually wait till I give a report of findings or beforehand, but I do tell them that my work is not dealing with symptoms. My work is to give them better health. Now, even better health is very broad,
Right.
Because that could involve nutrition and exercise and rest and all kinds of things. But I tell them, I contribute. I make a contribution to their health. And I don't have to even get into it at that time, what I'm going to do. But they do when they come back for the report of findings, I'll go a little bit deeper with them and reinforce what I've already told them. But what they're looking for is contradictions. Whenever you contradict yourself by asking after an adjustment, how does that feel? Or how did you do? And when a patient tells me, you know, doctor, I felt wonderful after that adjustment. I said, well, I'm glad you did. But sometimes people feel better, sometimes they feel worse after an adjustment. This is we're looking down the road, and you can't tell one day from another whether chiropractic is working, because there's a lot of other forces acting upon your body, and that will determine how you may feel at any particular moment.
Yeah.
When a patient says to me, doctor, I feel really so much better since you've been adjusting my spine, or since you've been looking after my spine. And I will say, I'm happy to hear that. Sit down and let's check your spine today. Or if they say, doctor, you know that pain that I had in my shoulder? Well, it came back last night. I'm sorry to hear that. Sit down and let's check your spine. But I don't dwell on that proves chiropractic. Or, well, let's see what's wrong. And if a patient, I try to get my patients accustomed to the idea that how you feel may not follow the days you get adjusted. You may feel very well on a day when you need an adjustment. And I explain that to them, why that is. Or you may feel very poorly on a day you don't need an adjustment. So I try to break that up. But if the chiropractor understands something, and there was a doctor who said, patients believe what the doctor believes. In other words, they accept your view of chiropractic to at least a good degree. And I was telling a story about a patient who had been quite sick and running a high fever, and they called me into the house, and they had never been under chiropractic care before. And usually I like x-rays, but I didn't have x-rays in this situation. But I palpated the spine and adjusted him. And the next day I went back, and the mother said that was just, he was doing very much better. She was trying to convince her son to be a regular patient. And she said to him, you see how chiropractic has really helped you. And I quickly said, no, that doesn't really, he said, that proves chiropractic. And I said, that doesn't prove chiropractic. Because people get spontaneous remissions, fevers break, and people feel better at any time. And so I always want them to know that you cannot really get a picture of chiropractic in a snapshot. It's got to be a long-term video of how they're doing. So you can change them to a degree, but there is a 5,000-year culture of disease care. It's not really health care. And I tell them we don't deal in disease care, and we don't deal entirely in health care, but we deal in one area of health care, a very important area. And the other thing is that nerves have a profound effect upon the body, maybe more so than a toothache. But if you even look at a dentist, many diseases and symptoms in other parts of the body can come from bad teeth. When I was a child, I was running convulsions, and they found out I had a tooth abscess, and I was having convulsions from a tooth abscess. So, an optometrist, if someone said, oh, you have headaches, I can give you glasses to prevent headaches. They don't do that. They give glasses to improve eyesight.
Right.
And we don't give adjustments to reduce headaches or eliminate headaches. We give adjustments to reduce a subluxation or eliminate the subluxation. Sometimes it benefits headaches, but not always. But we know what our mission is, and it goes back again to mission.
Yeah, that's really clear. So how did you build a large chiropractic practice?
All right. A philosopher said that they can who believe they can. And I always just had that kind of confidence about myself that I believed I could build a big practice. I thought chiropractic was fantastic. I thought you'd have to be really deficient not to have a big practice. You could have as big a practice as you want. And I loved practicing chiropractic. I practiced sometimes every day of the week.
Wow.
I just, not practicing bothered me. I like to work long hours. I always liked to work long hours. And so I just knew that, well, first of all, chiropractic saved my life. I spent my first 8 birthdays in the hospital. Now, I wasn't there constantly, but every time my birthday came around, I think my 8th birthday I spent at home, but my 7 birthdays were in the hospital. And one time I went to the hospital, I spent 2.5 years in the bed in the hospital.
Wow.
And they said I wouldn't live to be 20. Well, at 17, I got into chiropractic and got well. I became a chiropractic patient when I was 17 years old. And until this year, when I had cataracts removed, because I couldn't get a driver's license if I didn't, I had not seen a physician. So chiropractic has been wonderful to me, saved my life, made life much, much better for me. I asked my chiropractor, I said, you know, I'm rather shy. I don't know if I really could meet people like he could. And actually, I asked his wife. I was too shy to ask him. And the wife said, well, her husband was about the same way. But she said, if you think you could learn to give an adjustment, she says, you'll be all right. I said, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
And so I went to chiropractic school. But I never took, which is very popular in the United States, for chiropractors to take management programs, practice management, how to build a practice.
Oh, yes.
I never did that. I didn't feel I always knew I could build a practice. It was just so good, all I had to do is tell people they'd love it. It'd sell itself. But I did want to learn to be a good adjuster and to know how to find subluxations and know to leave well enough alone when they weren't subluxated not to be manipulating their spine. So that's why I came to South Carolina to be with Dr. Sherman, because he was the assistant director of the B.J. Palmer Research Clinic. And he was just an outstanding chiropractor. So I located here rather than in my home state of New York so that I could learn more about the spine. I thought that was important in building a practice. Because philosophy is very exciting and people like the philosophy. But I never relied on the philosophy to build my practice. I acted as if I taught my patients the philosophy so they could live a better lifestyle. But I had in the back of my mind that my practice was dependent on how well I corrected subluxations. So we did that. But you have to tell people you have to be affordable. And the kind of practice that I wanted, where maybe I would check patients a little bit more frequently than usual, but not adjust them, except when they were subluxated.
Right.
I found I had to get a fee system that would suit that kind of practice. Because people didn't want to go to a doctor 5 times and be told everything was fine, just pay me. So I gradually worked where I would get families on a family plan. And I worked for a number of years, for about 5 years on just contributions, and that worked out well. We have the Salvation Army here, and I happened to meet the captain of the Salvation Army. We were in the Civic Club and served there. And I told him that he had a lot of poor people in his congregation. We would take care of them free of charge. I would rather be working and not making money than just sitting around. I just love to see people have better health. And they became walking advertisements for me also. And they would go out and they would tell other people about the office and so forth. So maybe I made a little bit, I didn't make really less money because I just saw a lot more people. And we got a practice up to, around 75 people a day. Now I had 2 assistants, someone taking my x-rays and moving the patients, and someone doing the book work and making appointments and taking the fees and things of that nature. But with 3 adjusting rooms, where I could just move around 3 adjusting rooms, trying to get more efficient and not waste my time taking x-rays or developing x-rays. I did read the x-rays, and I did my own examination. But when I walked into a room, a patient was there, either they had their shirt off or if they were in a gown, that I could quickly, and then I didn't have to make conversation after the patient was adjusted. I could go to the next room and an attendant would walk in and take care of the patient. So I kept getting more and more efficient to use my time in a way that was most appropriate for my skills. And the patients would talk to each other about their benefits that they were getting, or that they perceived that they were getting. And so a lot of the selling of my practice took place in the reception room. And they didn't mind waiting for me. I didn't want them waiting too long, but sometime it would be 45 minutes to an hour wait to get inside to see me into a room. But that wasn't too long. People were accustomed to doing that. So I just didn't think 10 or 20 patients a day made me satisfied. The other thing I found is that when there was a rhythm to my practice and I was constantly moving, the rhythm, I gave better adjustments. The adjustments went better and everything went better. But if there were pauses in my day, it just seemed like I would lose my rhythm. So, but you've got to first know that you can and get rid of any fear, and you have to take what I call an assumptive attitude, that I believed the patient was going to love everything I did. They were going to like me, they were going to like chiropractic, they were going to like the service, they were going to like everything. And I never went in with any doubt. When I started in practice, I would try to explain to a patient why they needed x-ray. And then I came to the conclusion, that's silly. They came to me because they wanted my examination. And I didn't even have to ask them about x-rays. After I looked at their spine and made my analysis, and they needed x-rays, I took them down to the x-ray room and the technician was there. And I told the technician what x-rays I wanted on that patient, and I left. I didn't tell them how much it was going to cost. I didn't tell them anything. They never asked. That I just assumed that they were going to be very pleased with the cost of it. They were going to be very pleased that I had x-rays. I had a local chiropractor who I visited when I first came to Gaffney, and he said patients in Gaffney will never accept x-rays. They just don't want to spend money there. Well, it wasn't a short time where everyone was saying, go to see Gelardi because he will take x-rays and he will know what the problem is. So patients believe what the doctor believes. But you have to have an assumptive attitude. If you think they're not going to like this fee, or they're not going to like how frequently I want to see them, or they're not going to like that I'm not feeling their sore places or talking about it. If a patient said, doctor, you know, what do you think of my shoulder because it gives me pain, particularly in the mornings when on rainy days and so on, I will tell them, I don't know very much about shoulders, but I do know one thing. I know your body's trying to heal it. your body's always trying to heal itself. And I know it's less able to do so if you have a subluxation. Now, I don't know what is wrong. I mean, I don't have a means for diagnosing it, and I'm not trained to diagnose it. That's out of my field. I don't mind telling them. If they say, doctor, what do you think is causing my low back pain? A lot of things that could cause low back pain. And I'm not really equipped to know all of those things. But I do know that your body is trying to heal itself.
Right.
And it's better able to do that, better able to contribute. Oh, are you saying that if I'm adjusted now that I will heal myself? No, I'm not saying it. I'm saying that you will be better. You'll get some better healing without subluxation. How far that healing will take place, I don't know. But you just keep explaining the philosophy to them that there are limits of healing. And sometimes people get 100%. I've had patients I didn't think were going to get any benefit, but I still take them as patients. And sometimes, which was wrong in the beginning, I would tell them, I don't think this is going to help you, but we'll try.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't, I stopped doing that. And I just think that if someone has epilepsy and the epilepsy never changes, their lives are still improved in other ways. And so you just have to bring everything back, not exaggerate what the subluxation can do. Tell them the honest truth, what it does. It removes an interference, and the body is limited. I don't get into the limitations of matter and so forth. That's a little bit too deep for patients.
Thank you. That's really good. I have an interesting question for you. It's a last question. So, how Dr. Betty Gelardi impacted to your life?
Okay. How did Betty? Betty was not a chiropractor when we met. She was a nurse, a registered nurse, and but she had she loved chiropractic from day one. And I was afraid when I met her to explain chiropractic because I was so enthusiastic about chiropractic, I usually ran people off. So I said I would just answer her questions briefly, rather than have her leave to think I was too ridiculous. But then when Dr. B.J. Palmer was speaking, as he occasionally did to our class, I would ask her if she could get off to come in to hear him, and she always did. And she liked B.J., she liked chiropractic. And she was attuned to chiropractic from her upbringing. She was never really into medicine. She just went into medical work because she couldn't afford to go to some other direction with her education. But she was very, very positive. And when I left school, I believed, as I was taught, that we had the cause of all disease. I found out quickly that that was an error in the philosophy. But at that time, when I was in practice, I really believed that. And I believed that there were limitations of matter and that people were limited. But one of my first patients was a person with asthma, and he had some wonderful benefit. And then he brought in his little child, and I don't remember, maybe a year old, don't remember exactly, who had meningitis and was in the, they call it opisthotonous posture. The child was arched backwards, and the fever was over 106 degrees. And we had a home office combination, so I went into the other room and I said to Betty, that Betty, this child, I believe, has a good chance of dying. And the North, I came from New York, and New Yorkers were not very popular in the South. And for a lot of reasons, chiropractic wasn't well known back then either. So I said, if my first patient, or one of my first patients dies, it would damage my ability to survive. They would say that chiropractic, caused a child's death. So I said, I'm going to tell them to take the child to a medical doctor at the hospital. And she sort of let me know that I was thinking about myself and not the child. And that I should get in there and check the child's spine. So I said, okay, but please call Dr. Sherman and tell him to hurry up and get up here. So she's okay, so she called. In the meantime, I went in and checked, and she came in and held the baby while I checked the spine. And I adjusted the baby quickly without x-rays. I don't usually x-ray babies anyway. And the child, the tension in the spine just broke. The child was able to lay flat. And in just a few minutes, the fever was going down. And by that time, Dr. Sherman came up, and he checked the child's spine. And he didn't think the child needed an adjustment. I had already adjusted the child. But he said for me to keep a close watch on the child. And then later, the fever went down to normal, but then it went back up a little bit. And it went up and down for about a week, but only chiropractic care checking, and the child got well. And we had another woman that came in, and she was near death. And she hadn't eaten anything but jarred baby food for something like 7 years.
Wow.
And she had many, many problems with her health, a heart condition and colon colitis. She had tumors on her and so forth. Anyway, I told the husband who came in with her that I didn't think chiropractic could help her. And so they left. And that evening I told Betty that I had told the patient I was going to care for her for the same reasons. I thought that she would die. And Betty said I should have tried to care for her. Just fortunately, the husband came back the next day alone and said, would I please try? So I said, well, you know your wife is near death. If she dies, I don't want you blaming chiropractic. But if you'll accept that, I'll do what I can for her. So he agreed. And we made house calls on her for several months and saw her frequently for the first year. But later she was able to eat raw onions. The tumors actually left. The colitis got better. Her heart got better and everything else. And she lived way up into her 80s. So
Wow.
and she was about 40 when she came to me, if I remember correctly. It was one of my early patients. So anyway, and then when my practice, and there were slow days when you're just starting out in practice, and we started with no money at all. Actually, we slept on the floor and all of our possessions were in cardboard boxes. We didn't have any dressers or anything else. We had a mattress on the floor, or a pallet on the floor. And so when I would get discouraged, she would just say, oh, things are gonna be okay. And she was just very positive, even though we didn't have money sometime almost to buy food, but she was positive things were gonna be okay. And that just meant a lot. But she loved chiropractic and always wanted to be a chiropractor. And I just kid her sometimes and tell her that I started Sherman College so she could become a chiropractor.
Wonderful.
But she was a great help, and not only in that way, but I think we've been married, I don't know how many years now, 65 years or so, and she's been a great boost to my life.